But we're so excited to get it started. This was a pretty day. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It was gorgeous outside. It didn't make me want to do no gardening or nothing, but it was gorgeous.
Like I said, I didn't even go outside today. I have my
Me neither.
I have my window open. I can see outside, but no, I didn't
I
go
ain't gonna lie
outside.
to you. I wasn't thinking about no dirt, but it's gorgeous. Absolutely. Now, did you need me to give you permission with the screen or are you
Yeah,
okay? Okay,
permission with
okay.
the screen. All right, everybody can hear me. Cool. All right. So for the first one, I wanted to kind of start back at the very, very beginning and give y'all a introduction to horticulture, kind of build up your knowledge base from the beginning. Some of the stuff you may know already, some of the stuff you may not know already. So that's kind of a good thing. And if it's reinforcement, that's a good thing already. So let me share my screen. All right, so we're going to start today with a introduction to horticulture. So we're going to talk about horticulture as at its base and kind of principles of horticulture and how they're going to relate to you and any garden you're trying to start. So for you think, hold up, I'm going to make this as painless as powerful as possible. It's not going to be super lengthy. It's not going to be super wordy. I'm going to try to bring it down to a level that is intelligible and palatable for you and that you can get with no problem. If you have any questions at any time, you can stop me and say, hey, I got a question, this, or this. And I want you to be able to stop me and just ask any questions you got. So I want you to think about botany as the top umbrella. So the top of the umbrella is botany. And you're thinking, how is botany related to starting a garden or horticulture? I'm gonna tell you. All right, so underneath the umbrella of botany, there's multiple different studies or practices. We start off with agronomy, which is the study application of plant science or crop production. What you be doing is some semblance crop production because you're cultivating and you're growing basic crops. If you want to grow any corn, if you want to grow any sorghum is like a substitute for sugar. If you want to grow anything that's a staple crop or a commodity crop, I don't see you growing any commodity crops. I don't see you growing any cotton, corn. I mean, I don't see you growing any cotton, soybeans, or anything of that nature. But if you're trying to grow certain commodity crops, that's agronomy, which is a study of basically plant science and crop science. Arboriculture, if you have any trees, if you're trying to propagate any trees, if you're trying to grow any trees, if you're trying to cut down any trees, you are engaged in arboriculture. Uh, Astrobotany. I don't think anybody going into space anytime soon. Because if you are, I'm trying to go too. Astrobotany is the study of plants in space. So basically, the people on the space station that are growing plants, eating plants, cultivating plants, if they are doing anything with plants, that's considered astrobotany. Of course, you see the two bases. You see astro, meaning space, botany, meaning plants. So you just kind of put them together. Biotechnology is the use of plants to synthesize products. So if you're making any essential oils from the plants that you grow, if you are making any oils for cooking, that's botany at its core. Dendrology is a study of woody plants, shrubs, trees, and lianas. So basically, if you have any boxwoods, any shrubs that you're trying to plant around your structure, if you have any trees or anything around there and like that, that's kind of, and you're like, let me investigate this before I actually plant it. That's what that is. Economic botany is basically the study of plants for economic use or value. So basically, if you're trying to sell what you're growing, that's economic botany. So basically, if you're trying to say, hey, I'm doing volunteer work, I was engaged in agronomy, I was engaged in economic botany. The reason that you can use this, the same way that people say, I'm not a trash collector, I'm a sanitation worker. It's kind of your fancying up what you're doing at its core. So let's jump all the way down, and there's more actual designation under that, but we'll jump all the way down to specifically what you're doing. Horticulture, which is the cultivation of garden plants. Anytime you're planting garden plants, anytime you're talking about gardening plants, that falls underneath the umbrella of horticulture. And there's other designations, but you can see them if you are interested. So we'll jump down again. So we're at horticulture. Let's jump under that umbrella. You find arboriculture, pomology, viticulture, floriculture, nursery greenhouse management, landscaping design, landscaping gardening. So nursery garden management, greenhouse management isn't necessarily concerning you unless you have a greenhouse. Basically, it's where seeds and seedlings and propagated plants, flowering plant material like soil, fertilizers, pesticides, gardening implementations, etc. are available. So basically, if you're in an enclosed structure and you are growing any of these things or you're managing any of these things, are considered to be nursery greenhouse management in any shape, form, or fashion. If you're growing in a greenhouse, that's considered to be nursery greenhouse management. All that thing and all those things in those realms are considered that. Sorry about that. All right. Oliculture. Oliculture is considered is the plant of growing vegetables, and that's exactly specifically what you all are going to be doing. You all are going to be planting vegetables. You're going to be planting cabbage, and it's basically if you're growing plants and vegetables for the purpose of consuming. If you're going to be consuming the stems and leaves, i.e. cabbage, spinach, Swiss chard, pak choi, bok choy, which are the Asian spinaches, any of those things that's considered there. If you're growing vegetables for their fleshy storage organs, i.e. onions, garlic, potatoes, beets, roots, any of that root crop, that's going to be considered that. Quick question, and you can unmute yourself if you want. Now I might have asked this question. I always ask this question. Are potatoes and sweet potatoes similar? There's no wrong answers. No wrong answers.
Yeah. Are they both grown in the dirt?
Are they just are they the same? Are they in the same family?
They root.
Ma'am?
I said they root plants.
Nope. They are actually
under the ground.
Nope.
Because you
They're
have
under
to
the ground.
plow them up or dig them up.
They're under the ground, but they're not the same thing. It's funny. Potatoes are actually related more so to carrots because they're modified roots. If you look on the other side, sweet potatoes are actually related to morning glory, that kind of green vine with a purple flower that you get in your plants or in your ground that you can't get rid of. That's what they're related to. Also, if you look on the same instance, sweet potatoes and potatoes are different because potatoes are usually going in the ground in about 2 weeks and they're harvested around May. On the other end of the spectrum, sweet potatoes go in the ground in May and then they're harvested September, October, around that time period, getting ready for Thanksgiving. So pomology, which is the cultivation of fruits. So basically, if you're interested in having any fruit tree, you're engaging in pomology. Basically, it's fruit production. So if you have a peach tree, if you have an apple tree, if you have an orange tree, which I have not seen an orange tree on this side of the country, but it doesn't say they can't be grown indoors if you like them. If you like that, you be engaged in what nursery greenhouse management. But outside, I don't think we don't have enough growing degrees days to be able to grow something like a citrus fruit, or it's not hot enough for a citrus fruit. If you take your hand and you put the top of Maryland, you put your other hand at the bottom of Virginia, and you take it and you go across the entire United States. People above us are colder, so they do cold season things very well. They do cold season crops very well. They do cold season vegetables. Up north, they're very much known for apple production. They're known for any fruit that's cold tolerant. If you look below us, they are known for anything warm season. They're known for Florida is known for its citrus fruits. Anything that's warm season and available, it grows better below. we're kind of in with the states of Maryland, Virginia, and then across the entire United States are known for a transition zone. Anything can grow here, it just doesn't grow very well because we're not hot enough and we're not cold enough for either one. So remember that when you're thinking about vegetable selection. All right, floriculture. Floriculture is the practice of cultivation of flowering and foliage plants, basically flowers and foliage plants. So if you think about if you are engaging in growing, if you're engaging in planting, if you're engaging in any aspects of growing flowers for yourself, for cut flower production, potted plants, anything like that, you're engaging in floriculture. A lot of people use that for business purposes, hobby, and it's used in industry. The number one industry in as far as agriculture is concerned, is the greens industry. The greens industry is considered to be potted plants and flowers. And I want to say, that's a multi-million dollar, maybe tens of thousands of multi-million dollar, I want to say multi-million dollar more so. That's the highest producing part of agriculture as a whole. Landscaping design. So everybody wants, the aim of landscaping design is to imitate nature. Everybody wants a beautiful lawn. Everybody wants pristine bushes. They want nice trees. Basically, when you're engaged in landscaping design, your aim is to produce a picture in landscape. You want something to be pretty, showy. You want your neighbors to stop when they're driving down and say, "Oh, that's nice." You want your landscape to be aesthetically pleasing. People do it for privacy. They do it for comfort. They do it for beauty. They do it for convenience and safety, flexibility, and either high maintenance or low maintenance. If you're engaged in landscaping design, any aspect of creating a landscape, any aspects of design and construction management, all falls under the umbrella of horticulture. So we get into horticulture itself. Horticulture is the art and science of producing nutritious food for the body and beautiful food for the soul. You want to take those root words, hortus, which means garden, and cultura, which means cultivate. So basically to have a garden and to grow stuff in it. So at its root, that's what horticulture is. So we'll get into the parts of the plant. There are three main parts of the plants. There's the leaves, the stems, the roots, the flowers, and the seeds are known as the plant organs. They're what keeps the plant alive. Each organ is an organized group of tissue and works together to perform a specific function. Then you have your plant part that's used for sexual reproduction, which is producing seeds. They include your flower buds, your flower itself, your fruit that you eat, and also the seeds. Then you have your vegetative part, which includes your root, stems, shoots, buds, leaves. They're not directly involved in sexual reproduction, but they're all important nonetheless. And also the vegetative part also is used in asexual reproduction or forming, such as cutting, buds, or grafting. So basically, if you have a plant, you have like say a hosta, and you say, I got a lot of hosta, my friend wants a hosta. If you make a cutting off of it or you separate that you're separating the vegetative part and you're giving it to somebody else, and you still have a part of the vegetative part to yourself so you can continue normal growing. So anytime you split a plant, that's considered splitting the vegetative part. If you are in budding and grafting are a part of the easiest way I can explain budding and grafting, if you are trying to splice another piece of plant on top of that plant, on top of another plant to get a specific desired plant, you're engaged in budding and grafting. Say for instance, if you have onions, you cut up your onion and you want to try to regrow another piece of onion, you put it in the soil or you put it in water, that's a part of budding or grafting. If you have a piece of pineapple, you cut the top of the pineapple off and you put it in soil to try to regrow it, that's a combination, you're engaged in cutting, budding, or grafting. So plant classifications. So you have three plant classifications. Those in this, their growing habits. So if you have annuals complete their life cycle in one cycle, 1 year, or one growing season. You go from seed to flowering, and then reseeding in one growing season, and then they die. So basically, a lot of your flowers, a lot of your vegetables, things of that nature, are going to be annuals. So they go from seed to maturity, and then they die all in one season or all in 2 seasons. You have your perennials. Perennials may go through repeated flowering and seeding cycles before they die. They may grow for several years and before flowering and dying. So you do have some plants and some vegetables that do go through as perennials, where they go through multiple seasons or they go through multiple years and then they die. Then you have your biennials. You have very few vegetables that are biennials, and you have very few plants that are biennial. More so, your bulbs are going to be biennials, where they go from bulb or seed, maturity, die back, and then they come back the following year. And that's how they complete their life cycle. One of the more prominent vegetables that is a biennial is going to be your asparagus. Asparagus is a plant that it's not hard to grow, but it is a labor of love because it takes 3 years before you actually get anything off of asparagus. You have to let it grow your first year. Anything the first year you have to cut off, you don't eat it. Second year, you let it grow. Anything off of that, you cut it off, you don't let it grow. That third year, you actually get something viable off the asparagus, and you'll get 2 to 3 years more off of that asparagus before it's done. So you'll have that asparagus for 5 years, maybe 6, and then the asparagus kind of peaks out. Then you have to, a lot of people use a slash and burn technique. They'll burn it down, dig up what's there, and plant new crops. So climate adaptation. Perennial plants are classified according to the minimum temperature they would tolerate. So if you ever see on the a plant's tag, like that it prefers a preferred temperature, which is its maximum temperature, and then it also has its minimum temperature. What's the lowest temperature that it could be either outside with air temperature or also in the ground temperature that it will be able to thrive and keep going. Most plants like it at about, excuse me, most plants like it at about a 65 to 95 degree temperature. Like your tomatoes like 65 degrees, maybe 75 at the most. They don't want to be too hot. Sweet corn is around the same thing. On the other end of the spectrum, you have your cold season plants, like your carrots, your asparagus, things you're going to put in the spring or things you're going to put into the fall are going to be your cool season crops. So we'll talk very slightly about the plant cell, and it'll be applicable a little bit later. So the picture you see is the plant cell. We have two different cells that we know about. We know about plant cells and we know about animal cells. We're going to focus more so on the plant cell. This is something that you probably learned in elementary or middle school. The biggest thing that you know the difference between the animal cell and the plant cell is that the plant cell has cell walls, animal cell doesn't. They do have similar organisms, they might just be in different places. Now, flowering plants as we know them didn't develop until the end of the Cretaceous period, which is about 65 million years ago, just as the dinosaurs were becoming extinct. So basically, flowering plants as we know them and dinosaurs didn't exist at the same time. So I'm not going to go over all of this, but all of this is just a different function of the organisms inside of the plant cell. The only thing that you need to know, and it'll help you with some other functions as we go along, is the mitochondria. Oh, sorry, right here, the mitochondria. The reason being the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It's where all the magic happens and it's where all the energy is created. Specifically, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine tri because it's a 3 phosphate, and that is basically going to be the basis of any power that the plant is producing for itself. So we'll talk about photosynthesis a little bit. Photosynthesis is a process by which green plants produce their own carbohydrates and obtain chemical energy for themselves. Plant cells in the presence of chloroplasts and light convert carbon dioxide, which we give out. We breathe in oxygen, we give off carbon dioxide, and water, which comes from the atmosphere, to create carbohydrates. The net results in transformation of light energy into chemical energy is how we get oxygen. So without plants, we wouldn't be able to breathe. Energy is stored into chemical bonds of the carbohydrate molecules, and then from there, you get the offshoot of what's created during photosynthesis. So there's two different types of photosynthesis. Two different types. So the first type is oxygenical photosynthesis, basically meaning you need oxygen to complete that photosynthesis. The other one is an anoxygenic photosynthesis, which you don't need oxygen to complete that. Most plants that are engaged in oxygenic photosynthesis, there are plants that aren't. It is mainly certain types of plants, certain types of algae, and certain types of cyanobacteria, which are engaged in that process. So we have along the lines of the creation part. During oxygenic photosynthesis, light transfer from electrons, water, H2O, to create carbon dioxide, which we give off, and also it's in the atmosphere, to produce carbohydrates for the plants, or receive electrons in water, becoming oxidized, basically meaning it's going back to the atmosphere. Ultimately, oxygen is produced along with carbohydrates. So basically the plant produces oxygen for us, and it produces carbon dioxide for itself, carbohydrates for itself. All right, this is the chemical equation for photosynthesis. You see carbon dioxide and water on one side, carbon dioxide, water, and light. The byproduct is sugar for the plant and oxygen for us. You can see it takes 6 carbon and 2 oxygens, plus 6 hydrogen and 2 oxygen, which is H2O, plus sunlight, gives off glucose, which is a 6 carbon, 12 hydrogen, and 6 oxygen, plus a 6 oxygen, plus a 6 O2, which is oxygen in its purest form. So we'll talk about reactions. There are 2 reactions, and this reason why it's important, I'll explain. So there's a light-dependent reaction, basically normal photosynthesis. Normal photosynthesis happens during the day, and it requires sunlight to basically kick off and start the process of photosynthesis. Then you have light-independent reactions, which is known as the Calvin cycle or the dark cycle. It doesn't need light to perform any photosynthesis, and it's only for specific plants. So in order for a plant to engage in photosynthesis and start creating carbohydrates and oxygen for us, it's required that it has to have its stomata, must be open to allow carbon dioxide to enter the leaf. Basically, its pores needs to be open for it to take in carbon dioxide and sunlight and water to kind of kick off the reaction. It needs adequate light, so there must be enough light for it to kind of engage in photosynthesis. Water must be available, and minerals and nutrients must be available to the plant. So there are other plants. There's 2 plants. There's there's C3 plants, and then there's also C4 plants, and then there are can plants. We'll talk about can plants next. Normal plants and most plants are just C3 plants. Sorry. Normal plants are just C3 plants. About 85% of the plant species on the earth are C3 plants, including rice, soybeans, and all trees. And most plants are considered C3 plants. They engage in photosynthesis. They're going about their way. And C4 plants, the light-dependent reaction and the Calvin cycle are done separately. So it does photosynthesis and it does the dark reaction in these type of plants. And it does them independently.
What are some examples of C4 plants?
C4 plants are going to be some of your desert plants. Going to be some cactuses. It's going to be plants that don't require. It's going to be some of your not all your vegetables, some of your plants that are shade tolerant plants. Any plant that doesn't need a lot of sunlight, like your partial sun plants, and also your shady plants like your hostas, are going to be involved in C4 plants. And they're also going to be, so they do photosynthesis and they do dark reactions all together.
And is it true that some cultures know how to eat cacti plants and stuff? Like you
Hmm.
can eat that, and it's a good source of water if you happen to be caught out there. I don't know. I only saw it on
Yeah, in the
TV.
desert. I'm gonna tell you why. You're gonna learn in the next slide why. Yes. I think in the stores, if you go in, have I seen? Yeah, I've seen the Giant. I think I've seen them in Walmart. I don't know, but basically, cactus water. Basically, people harvest cactuses for their water and also for their healing properties. I'm not a big fan of cactus water, but it's okay. So you have your CAM plants. CAM means crustacean acid metabolism. CAM plants are minimize photorespiration and save water by separating their steps into time between night and day. Reason being, because it's too hot for your pores. If some of these plants, desert plants, if you ever wondered how they do photosynthesis when it's so hot, the reason they do is they do all their photosynthesis at night. So during the day, they store all this water, all this sunlight up so they can do their photosynthesis at night. So your desert plants, your shade tolerant plants, all those can be kind of grouped into that CAM plant, which is a crustacean acid metabolism plant. Um, it uses a CO2 at night. It uses the Calvin cycle, which is called the dark cycle. So basically, why cactuses have so much water in it is for the simple fact that their stomata is too hot to kind of engage in photosynthesis in the desert in their region where they're at. They kind of store up all this water and all this light to do their photosynthesis at night. So while most plants are asleep, if you can think about it like that, they're on a night shift job and they're doing their photosynthesis during the night. Oh, yes. On this side is a picture of the kind of the Calvin cycle and the process of what CAM plants are doing when they do photosynthesis, which is completely different from photosynthesis as we know it. So respiration, I don't know if you would think that plants breathe, but plants do breathe. They're basically they're breathing in carbon dioxide and they're breathing out oxygen. And the opposite, we're breathing in oxygen and we're exhaling carbon dioxide. It's a process involved where plants are using sugars produced during photosynthesis plus oxygen to produce energy for plant growth. Basically, they're taking in carbon dioxide so they can do photosynthesis, and their byproduct is basically oxygen. And without plants actually breathing, we wouldn't be able to survive. So at the bottom is the chemical equation that you would note with respiration for a plant. It takes in sugar, oxygen. I mean, on one side you see sugar and oxygen. On the other side, you see carbon dioxide, water, and you see energy. You see that ATP, which is adenosine, remember 3 triphosphate, so 3 phosphorus. So an adenosine atom, and you see 3 phosphorus atoms. And that's ATP, which is the powerhouse, which powers the mitochondria in all plant cells. So respiration, its role, it takes place on a 24-hour scale. So basically 24 hours a day, plants are breathing. If you've ever gone into somebody's house and their house smells a little bit fresher or it feels like the air is a little bit fresher and they have plants in there, it's because plants are actually actively breathing in their carbon dioxide and they're putting off oxygen. So they're constantly taking in, putting out, taking in, putting out. So they're actually deoxygenizing and kind of freshening up the air in the household. A lot of this is done at nighttime, but it's done 24 hours a day. So a specific experiment, people took a plant, they hooked it up to an EKG machine, and they sent electric shocks into it to see if plants can feel, if plants respond to stimuli. So they did that. They sent electric pulses into it. They put fire to the plant to see if it would respond. And you could actually see on the EKG machine that the plant was responding to negative and positive stimuli. They had a person come in and say every morning, good morning to their plant, speak nice words to it. I enjoy you, you helped me, thank you so much. The plant responded positively. It put off good roots, it grew very strong and tall, and it also put off good fruits. You had another plant on the opposite end of the spectrum. They had somebody come in every day, tell the plant, I hate you, you're worthless. Every day when they came in contact with the plant didn't grow that well. It put off fruit that was sour, a little bit bitter. And you can see, so whenever you think about it, plants respond to how you feel, and basically the energy you give off, plants respond negatively or positively to whatever you give off. I'm not gonna lie to you, every morning when I wake up, I go outside and I speak to my plants. I say, good morning, how you doing? Hopefully you have a good day. Hopefully that makes them grow better. I haven't hooked the EKG machine to it to check, but I send, if you want to say in the word, positive vibes to my plant to let them know that I am thankful for the fruit and vegetables that they put off and the oxygen they give me to keep my day going. And I think they've responded positively to it. I can't say if they have or haven't, but I'm pretty sure they have. Yes, ma'am.
Not a question. I'm just congratulating you.
Oh, thank you. So transrespiration basically is the evaporation or loss of water vapor from plants through the stomata. So basically, when it's hot outside, the plant's version of sweating. How we sweat when it's hot outside, plants lose water through their leaves. So basically, they're losing water through their pores, and they're losing water through their xylem cells. Plant cells are comprised of xylem and phloem cells. Basically, if you cut down a tree, you can count how old that tree is by counting their xylem and their phloem cells. You can count and say, okay, this tree is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or however many years old it is. The same thing you can do with certain plants. Corn plants, you can kind of split it down the middle, and you can tell by how many xylem cells it has, how many months it's been alive, or what stage of growth it's at. Sorry, go back. Okay. Translocation is the movement of water and nutrients for food, etc., from one part of the plant to another. So when we water our plants, we water the ground, the roots take up that nutrients and it takes up that water and it kind of goes to the roots. It translocates through the stem. The stem drops it off at leaves, it drops it off at the fruit, it drops it off at the flowers, and then it kind of goes up from leaf, stem, until it gets to the top. And then it's doing the same thing again as you water, or it's doing the same thing again when it needs certain nutrients to keep growing. So that is translocation, what's happening when nutrients, when water, when fertilizer, when anything is being distributed throughout the plant. Okay, so how plants function. You know that plants have a daytime and nighttime cycle. Basically, plants experience day and night the way we experience day and night. If the sun is shining all the time, plants respond kind of, I don't want to say negatively, but they don't respond at their best when it's always sunny. They require a black period or a night period to be able to produce themselves or to be able to go on. So plants kind of experience some type of dormancy when it's winter. They kind of drop their leaves, they kind of defoliate, and they kind of get themselves ready for the next season by shutting down, kind of like how bears hibernate. They kind of store up everything they need. They kind of get themselves ready for that next season. So in a 24-hour period, plants need 12 hours of light, 12 hours of dark. Most plants only need 8. Some plants can function off of 4. No plant can function off of anything less than 6. Anything less than 6, you only have certain plants that can function, but 6 is kind of that threshold. You have a few plants that can basically function off of 4. Anything less than that, a plant can't function. So the importance of plants. Without plants, there'd be no humans. There'd be no animals. Without plants, life on this earth would not exist. Plants are the primary source of food for humans and animals. Plants have a specific role that they play. They create oxygen for us. They create food for us in the edible form. They also create food for things that we consume. We're considered to be omnivores, which basically means we eat plants and we eat animals. We're in certain food chains, we're at the top of the food chain. If we're in the water, we're not so much at the top of the food chain. There are other animals that are at the top of the food chain, but for the most part, humans are apex predators, which means they're at the top of most food chains. Plants are eating, so we eat the seeds of plants, we eat the fruit of plants. If we're eating corn, if we're eating sorghum, if we're eating barley, if we're eating rice, anything like that, we're eating something in the grass family. So all those are related to the grass that you walk on. Wheat, rice, corn, sorghum, barley are all related to the same grass that you walk on, that you throw oil into, because sometimes people don't want to flush oil down the drain, just kind of throw it out their patio. I've seen it many times. Plants are responsible for 88% of the world's total caloric intake. Basically, plants are responsible for 80% of our protein intake on a regular basis. So in the industrial area, plants are responsible for wood, fiber, oil, rubber, cotton and flax and hemp, also used for different type of textile materials. Wood for timber is used to make furniture, homes, and many other things. Plants are also used for making chemicals such as acetic acid, methanol, turpentine, and also it's obtained from trees as well. We do use corn for ethanol as well, and we use that, combine that with gasoline to make, combine that with methanol to make gasoline. To me, I'm going to be honest, I don't understand why gas costs so much. Specifically for the reason being that the process to make gas hasn't changed in hundreds and hundreds of years, but the price of gas itself has gone up drastically. The process to make it hasn't changed, but the price of it has changed. Good question. You can unmute yourself. Who basically came up with the idea of the soybean and the process to use the soybean? There are no wrong answers.
I don't know. Soybeans?
Mm-hmm. He came up with soybeans.
You talking about like the
Was
Native
it me?
Americans?
Nope.
It was
No.
me.
Put you like this. He looks just like you and me.
Is that George Washington Carver?
African?
Ma'am?
You said that, did it start in Africa?
Nope. 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 Nope.
Was it George Washington Carver?
It was George Washington Carver.
Oh, get it, Minister Darlene.
Woo! All right.
It was
Oh.
George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver came up with soybeans. They initially were not created to be eaten. They were created just for plastics. They were created for other industrial purposes. Their soybeans were never created to be eaten because of of their properties and what they're actually used for. So when you see an Impossible Burger that has soybean in it, if you see the back of your wrapper and you see soybean oil, soybean was never meant to be eaten. It was just meant to be used for different processes, especially its main process, which was industry. I can't remember his name. His name escapes me. He came up with, he worked at Howard University, Black man. He came up with 1,000 different ways to use the soybean. And also he came up with the idea of plastics. He worked out of Howard. He went and studied abroad in France. He came back. And one of the specific things that he struggled with is why things were so different in France, but not different in the United States. He worked directly for DuPont. He created the idea of plastics and also 1,000 other ways to use the soybeans. But he took what George Washington Carver did and he kind of built on that and went forward. So plants' most important roles in the medicinal world is to make oils, to make chemical compounds to heal us. Aspirin, all these different things are coming from plants. Many people believe that the key to cure many of our most deadly diseases, such as cancer, AIDS, may lie in some plants and yet to be found. I'm going to ask a specific question. All right. What was the last disease that humans cured? They got rid of completely. The last disease. I'll put it like this. My grandfather was born in the Great Depression. He was born in 1925. So, and that was a time period around that the last disease was eradicated. Anybody?
Polio?
Who said that?
Polio?
Polio is correct. Polio was the last disease that we eradicated. There is no more polio. Nobody gets polio anymore. Is there polio still around? Yes. All diseases known to mankind are kept in Atlanta, Georgia, at the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. So basically, we cured the last thing we cured were in the 1900s. So we took a computer from the size of a room down to this, but we can't cure anything. Reason being, there's money in controlling a disease. There isn't money in curing a disease. So you kind of marinate on that why hasn't anything else been done? Why can we do all these modern wonders, but we can't cure ourselves for certain diseases?
So is the person name, I'm looking on my phone. You talking about Percy Julian?
Yep, Percy Julian.
Let me tell you something about Percy Julian. You know he has Baltimore ties, right?
Didn't know that.
Did you know that? Yes, his nephew was my obstetrician. Yeah, Emerson Julian is his brother's son, and Emerson Julian used to live right there on Wheeler and not Landville, but one of the streets. They was from West Baltimore, and his brother Emerson Julian Sr. was a councilman, and I never knew that, right? Because you know Coppin named the building after him. And he came up with the part that, that came up with insulin to help people stop dying from diabetes. And I didn't know that, and his nephew told me this, and I didn't know that. So that's interesting. It's a small world. If that's the right person, I just looked it up on my phone.
Yeah, he said it was.
Yeah, Percy Julian. Yeah, Dr. Julian. He delivered. Dr. Julian delivered both my daughters.
Oh wow. Okay.
He's not practicing anymore. That was his nephew. Yeah. All right, everybody. Is everybody brain dead like me? I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know it was gonna be all this information.
I'm just note taking. I know the time check is 5:50. I know somebody said they had to be gone at 5:30. It's a little over. And I think we said he has a 6 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We're almost done. Entering that final stretch. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot who came up with the idea of plastics. I was watching an episode, please don't laugh at me, of a show called Drunk History.
Never heard of it.
An episode of Drunk History, and they talked about Percy Julian, and they talked about all the inventions that he gave, and I was like, huh. So if you see the show Drunk History, don't kind of dismiss it because of the name. It actually is super informative. They talked about him. They talked about Madam C.J. Walker, and they also talked about somebody who's from my home state who people forget, Maggie Walker.
Oh, who's she?
She's the first Black millionaire and the first Black head of a bank.
Oh.
From Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
So she predates Madam C.J. Walker.
Oh, okay. Maggie, okay.
Maggie L. Walker. Some people kind of confuse Madam C.J. Walker with Maggie L. Walker, but they're two different people.
Okay.
All right. Lastly, plants are used for their important part in oil. We use plants, of course, to cook. Vegetable oil is a combination of corn oil, canola oil, and soybean oil, all kind of wrapped up into one. A lot of plants are used for their oil. We use coconut oil, we use sunflower seed oil, we use peanut oil, cotton oil, rapeseed oil. So plants are used for oils as well. And that is it. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know. If you all are interested, we can do this again next week or a week after that, or however you're interested, and we can talk more about specific things on plants. We can talk about vegetable selection. We can talk about fertilization. Any subject that you're interested in, I can kind of talk about.
Well, we thinking in terms of after we get the information from you, the soil would be good, and then how to make the raised flower beds. What do we need to think about? And I think we didn't come like at a total consensus, but that whole component of growing sunflower seeds sound intriguing.
So you tell me how we want to proceed. If we want to talk about soil next, I can definitely talk about soil next, even next week or week after next, or what have you.
Okay, so everybody on here, do you want him to talk about soil?
Yes, because that's one of the components, because depending on the soil is what will help us with our vegetable selection, correct?
Correct.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
You told us the soil wasn't too good. Now we got the informational way to send the soil, but by the time we got it, we were I didn't know cold versus, I mean, today makes it look like it's a good day, but you told us to wait till after the frost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take a sample and send it off.
So let me show you something really quickly. Okay, this is super easy to find, not the easiest thing to work. Basically, I can tell you what your soil is comprised of. All right, give me the location of, give me your location of the garden.
What's the address to the church, y'all?
1357.
No,
No,
1354.
1358.
No,
54.
you going by the church?
I'm sorry, 1354. Yeah.
Yeah, 13.
Okay.
Come on now. Come on
Hey,
now.
I'm 59, so you know it's somewhere split somewhere in there. And you directly in front of me.
1354 North Curry Street.
That's right. I know
North.
Curry.
All are welcome to come and fellowship.
That's
Even
right.
Spell the name of the street.
Carey.
C-A-R-E-Y.
Carey.
All right.
C-A-R-E-Y.
C-A-R-E-Y, Baltimore.
Yeah, north
Maryland.
though. It's because it is the south. It's north.
Yes,
Carey.
north. 21217. You mean get it right?
Okay. And you go to state, so we'll take.
We can't see what you're doing.
Oh, you can't see what my screen is in. It says my screen is paused. Oh man, shoot.
We can just see your last slide, plants' most important roles.
Oh man, well that's bad. Give me 1 second. I don't know. Oh, resume sharing. There we go. All right. Okay, I know how to do that. 1 second. All right. Glassman says something. Okay, can you see what I'm doing now?
Yes.
All right. So this is the soil survey. Every soil every soil that we walk on, no matter what part of the country that we're in, is housed on this website done by the USDA. So we'll say Baltimore, we'll view, and then we'll go down to soil area. So we're looking again. We'll go to Maryland County, Baltimore City. We'll tag Baltimore City and we'll set the area of interest. So the area of interest has been set. So we'll go to the soil map. We'll go back. Go to address. Go to view. All right, so this is specifically telling us what soil your area is comprised of. So your area is comprised of a 44 UC. So we go to this side and we look for 44 UC. So 44 UC. So 21.6% of Baltimore City is made of this soil is 44 UC. It's considered to be an urban soil. So we'll click on that right there. And it tells us all about your soil, the historical, I guess, significance of your soil. So basically your soil is 100% urban. Doesn't mean your soil is bad. What it basically means is they took all the organic matter, they took all the topsoil out of that soil, and they brought in sand and dirt and filler, anything they could.
Well, that would be right,
Say,
because the train tunnels run underneath of there.
mm-hmm.
And it's called Sandtown, Winchester. So Sandtown. I'm
Yeah.
not sure, but I had a coworker who grew up in that area, and I think I told Kevin this a long time ago. He said when they went to build the houses around in that area, it was so much sand that they used some of it with the, I'm gonna say, whatever you make concrete out of. And so a lot of the doorways and window sills, when you go to break down those buildings, is a lot of sand because they mixed it up with whatever to try to build the houses.
So
I don't know when that
it's
happened. That could be a folklore. I don't know.
if somebody was looking at this from a technological standpoint, the soil is not the best for growing. Not saying you can't grow, because you can grow anything anywhere, but it's not considered the best soil for growing, if you look at it from that standpoint. So basically, this is the soil map. It tells, this is what the USDA uses, United States Department of Agriculture uses to determine how good or how bad your soil is. We could take it down to right here. And that specifically is the address that you gave me. This is the predominant soil here. And it shows you exactly where location is and what type of soil it has, whether it's good soil, whether it's bad soil, whether it's okay soil. But your soil that you have is basically, it comprises 21%, 21.6% of all soils in Baltimore City. This is, I want to say it comprises 12,694 acres of Baltimore City. So your soil is basically, I want to say, the biggest chunk of Baltimore soils. So most of Baltimore soils look exactly or have the same structures as your soil has. this is what just people go to tell them how basically if the soil is good at holding water, if it's not good at holding water, if it's good for growing, if it's not good for growing, all those different things. And
Okay, so
but
I know you have to go because it's a little bit after 6, but so next week we're going to talk about what we need to do to reinforce the soil or additives we might need to add, or what, based on the soil that we have, what are our options?
so we're talking about soil, we're talking about soils, what you need to do with the soil that you have, how can you do something with the soil, what you need to add to the soil. We're talking about soil tests and how you interpret a soil test, what you're looking for that a soil test can tell you.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for this college level. I had the mitochondria, cytoplasm. I'm like, oh Jesus, that's been a while since I seen a slice of the cell, but that's okay. It'll come back to me, Lord. And I know Minister Shelley and Aunt Darlene and I was hearing the same thing, because I'm like, it was so much Bible, with so many biblical principles you were going over. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and wake myself up, because I know I'm a little whatever, but I appreciate you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Knowledge is power, and now that we know and we're learning, we can only do better by passing it on, and it's going to help get our creative juices together so we can come up with a game plan for these youth. I don't know if it's unbeknownst to you, if I shared, I did get the grant. So we do have a United Way grant. And what not only comes with United Way grant was the funding, that the $10,000. They offer, like, what can we do for our volunteer point of view. So just keep that in mind. With COVID lifting and maybe some other things coming up, we may be able to have something over at the church, in a small capacity way, social distancing and such like that. So we put in our last grant yesterday for Care a Lot, which is helping us take care of vacant lots in Baltimore. So again, we don't know about that grant yet, but nonetheless, we moving forward with it, and we just thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Anybody else got anything? If y'all have anything throughout the week, please, what was I saying? Email me and let me know.